So we're on chapter 50.
There you go.
Baruch Hashem, and Baruch Haba.
Of 53.
Chapter 50, that's right. Welcome to our advanced studies here at Congregation Mashiach Yisrael. My name is Scott Siskin, and tonight we're going to be studying our beloved Tanya, as has been pointed out, chapter 50, Perek Nun. Mi Yiftach Bit Tefillah Uvracha. Who would like to open us with prayer and a blessing?
Abby, thank you for giving us the opportunity to know you better, to come closer to you, to come higher. Please help us to absorb everything that you teach us today. Give us the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding to understand it and incorporate it in our lives, in ourselves, in our hearts, in our souls, in our minds, and then into our lives and into other people's lives. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshana b'mitzvotav b'tzivanu le'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us and betrothed us with his mitzvot and commands us to engage in the occupation of Torah. Amen. Maybe next time that prayer from the Zohar, yeah? I thought that worked out good before.
Okay.
Anyways, tonight we're going to be studying Perek 50. Perek 50, Perek Nun, chapter 50, is going to be the last in our marathon series of chapters on fear of God and love of God. As I'm sure you've been aware as we go along, this beautiful blue section here on our handy-dandy map of Tanya has charted our journey from chapters 41 through our chapter tonight, chapter 50, specifically talking about the love of God and the fear of God. So the Alter Rebbe is giving us various different definitions, various different methodologies, various different things that we can meditate about, contemplate, think about, experience, remember, that can help us to awaken this love of God in our heart and the fear of God as well. There we go.
And then the final
Well,
section is just 51, 2, and 3.
Right, so next week we're going to start the final 3 chapters, winding down in Tanya. But before we do that, let's talk about chapter 50. Tonight is going to be a fiery night, yeah?
A fire.
A fiery night indeed. Chapter 50 discusses another type of love, or another definition of a type of love, specifically dealing with the metaphor or the parable or the example that we're given in this world about the difference between silver and gold. Silver and gold. So as a brief introduction, let's just talk a little bit about some of our Kabbalistic intro 101 stuff. When we talk about the divine attributes of God, what's the name of the divine attributes of God? The Sfirot. The Sfirot. We're very familiar with these, especially now that we're counting the Omer, right? We can see all of the Chesed and the Gevurah. It's all over the place. So we know that the Sephardic tree, the 10 attributes of God, are chopped up into 3 triangles. There's the top triangle
What
of
a terrible word, chopped up.
divided, consisting, organized, if you will, into 3 triads, into 3 triangles. The top triad or triangle is Chabad, which is Chochmah, Bina, Vedat, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Following that, we have Chagas, or Chagat, which is Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet, love and fear, or awe, or respect, and beauty, or compassion. And then we have the final 4, which is Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut, which is endurance, humility, bonding, or friendship, and sovereignty, or dignity. So we know that if you go and you look, they're organized into columns. Anybody have a chart I could borrow real quick? Toda. Beat you to it. So we talk about the Sephardic tree. We have Chochmah and Bina and Da'at, and then Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut. So we know that Chochmah and Chesed and Netzach are all right column
side
energies, right? This is the flow of, the right side represents water, right? Like love. It's free-flowing, it's giving, it's going to flow, right? As opposed to the left column energies, which are Bina and Gevurah and Hod, which are more closely compared to fire, right? Fire ascends. It's the concept of power, right? The word Gevurah means power. Thank you. Oh, and we have Da'at and Tiferet and Yesod and Malchut. This makes up the middle column. This is the combination of the energies. Thank you again, Rabbi Yaakov. So, when we talk about love, which column does love come from typically?
The right side.
The right side. Love is a right type energy, right? You give with your right hand. That said, we now are studying in the Omer, when we do our meditations, when we count the Omer, trying to perfect our little idiosyncrasies and do a little spiritual refinement, what do we say, for example, on the second day of counting the Omer?
Oy vey.
We say Oy vey. We say today is 2 days of the Omer. And then when we do the meditation, we say it's the Gevura of Chesed, right?
Right.
What about the 8th day? Is that right? No, the 8th day, which is going to be the Chesed of Gevura, right? Say today is 8 days, which is 1 week and 1 day of the Omer, and then we say
See what Jesus did.
it's the Chesed of Gevura. So how can you have Chesed, Sheba Gevura? How could you have Chesed that exists within Gevura?
There's an interrelationship between all the 10 Sefirot.
Yep. As we studied during this period of time.
In
We
fact,
had a bracha earlier.
in God, they're in unity, perfect unity.
Exactly right. We say in Atzilut, it's all one, right? God is one with his vessels. He's one with the lights. He's one with everything.
The breakdown is really for our
Organizational,
for our intellect
right.
and understanding.
as it says, the Torah is written in the language of man so that the human ear could hear God's words, right?
Exactly.
So when we talk about the Gevura that exists within Chesed, or the Chesed that exists within Gevura, more aptly appropriate for tonight, the love aspect of discipline, or the love aspect of severity, we're not just disciplining because we hate something, or hate ourselves, right? I'm going to avoid the chocolate cake because I'm angry at myself. That could be a facet. There's a whole other facet to Gevura, which is an essential aspect of severity or discipline, which is, I'm doing this because it's the right thing because I love myself, or I love the person I'm disciplining, right? You see a father discipline his son, and he gives his son a kiss on the head afterwards, right? Why is that? Because I want you to know that this is for your good because I love you, right? It's not coming from a place of animosity, right?
But even the love must be tempered by
Gevura,
Gevura,
discipline, right?
by discipline.
You can't just be free giving all the time, right? You can't just say whatever you want. The kid says, I want a knife. And you just give the kid a knife, and the kid starts screaming, I want the knife right now. You can't just freely give, right? You have to say, no, this is not for right now, right? So when we talk about this aspect, we need to take a look and we need to see the deeper or the richer quality that exists within a love that's based in Gevura. And that's the focus of tonight's chapter. The advantage of the love that's based in a place of discipline, the advantage of a love that's based in a place of severity, the advantage of a love that's based in respect, in awe, in fear even, right? A more selfless love. It's a more powerful love. And the parable that we're using here to describe how much better this love that originates in the left column from Gevura is over the love that is just free-flowing from the right column is the comparison of silver and gold. So you have the right column energy, which is chesed, which is like free-flowing, which is like water. It's the love of silver, right? Whereas we have Gevura, it's like fire. And again, silver almost looks like water, and gold has got a fiery color to it. It's way more valuable than silver, right? And gold has always been more valuable than silver. So we're going to talk about and we're going to analyze, we're going to define this love that's based out of Gevura tonight, and that's essentially the nuts and bolts of chapter 50. So based on our handy-dandy map of Tanya, we have the chapter title for chapter 50. Again, this is the concluding section of our marathon of fear and love of God. And the chapter title based on our map of Tanya is A Love Like Gold, Yearning to Cleave to God. And if you've got your thinking caps on, your memory caps on, and you can remember some of the talk that we had, some of the words of God that we talked about in relation to the candle Jew, right? The concept of a flame, Nishmat Adam, or Nishmat Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, that the candle of God is the soul of man, right? That's going to play in very heavy tonight. Short summary. As gold is superior to silver, there is a love superior to all others, mentioned in this section. A burning desire to leave the body, returning only for the sake of making an abode for God in this world, which we defined earlier as dir betachtonim. I'll repeat that if you need it. So our short summary is, as gold is superior to silver, there is a love superior to all others. It's a burning desire to leave the body, returning only for the sake of making a dwelling for God in this world. That's where we're heading tonight. Questions before we start? Let's jump. Perek Nun, chapter 50. All the distinctions and gradations of love that have been mentioned above, and they've been numerable, right? We spent a couple, weeks on this now, or several days at the very least. All the distinctions and gradations of love that have been mentioned above derive from the right side. So everything we talked about before now, it's all right column energy. It's all love that originates in chesed. It's pure. It's what you think of love should be, right? I want to connect to God, two people connecting to each other. If you have two puddles of water, right? Remember, right side is water. You have two puddles of water that are next to each other and someone nudges the table, right? I won't do it because our camera might fall. And the two water bubbles touch together. They're going to form one water pile, right? They're not going to remain separate. This is the love that we're talking about. This is chesed love, right? The idea to join together. Pleasure-based. They all derive from the right side. Everything we spoke about till now. From the distinction of priest, Kohen, Ish HaChesed, man of grace or man of kindness. They are called Kesef HaKadoshim, a longing for holy things. By the way, if you know a little bit of Hebrew, this should be popping out at you right now. How do you say silver in Hebrew? I'll give you a hint. It's to the top of the left column of your book.
Bina?
Kesef. Kesef in Hebrew means silver. Kesef. 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 Kesef is spelled chuf, samech, fe. Kesef. Kesef means silver. Zahav means gold. Zahav parenthetically also has a numerical value of King David.
Kuf.
We'll tuck that away for later.
Kuf kamech.
Chaf, samech, fe. It's right here.
Oh, kaf.
Actually, you have it circled here, Bob. So, kesef means silver. Another definition of the word kesef, it's etymologically related to the concept of longing. Kesef also means longing, to want something, right? Which is why, in general, when we talk about money, even in modern Hebrew, the word for money is kesef, silver, because it's something you long for, right? The word kesef means silver. The word kesef means longing, something that you're longing for. So, just to repeat real quickly here, all the distinctions and gradations of love that have been mentioned above derive from the right side, the right column, from the distinction of Kohen, Ish HaChesed, the priest, who is a man of love, the man of grace, and are called Kesef HaKadoshim, longing for holy things. This is what all the love that we've talked about till now, that's what we're talking about. Etymologically, as in, for you longed repeatedly for your father's house. And this is a verse that comes from Genesis chapter 31. So, there is, however, yet another distinction of love which excels them all, superior to them all, as gold is superior to silver. And this is a love like fiery coals, not like water. A love like fiery coals, from the distinction of the supernal gevurot, from the energies that come from gevura, left column energy, not right column energy, from bina ilah, left column energy, the highest, the higher understanding, supernal understanding. This is the love that we're going to be talking about in this chapter. A love which is like gold relative to silver, a love that's rooted in left column as opposed to right column, a love that's rooted in power, rooted in fire, as opposed to rooted in love it's traditionally understood in water, right? So we're talking about the fire aspect or the gold aspect. And again, this is pretty obvious. Everybody knows that gold is more valuable than silver. What are the prices today? It's like $14.50 for ounce of silver. It's like almost $1,300 for an ounce of gold. It's always been that way, right? Gold is superior to silver. This is when, how do you get this love? What's this love? This is when, through contemplation on the greatness of the Ein Sof Yisbarach, of the Infinite One, blessed be He, before whom everything is accounted as truly nothing, right? Compared to God, all of creation is non-existent, as we've said many times before. God created the world with 10 utterances. Let there be, let there be, let there be. What is the value of 10 sentences you've spoken in your lifetime, or could speak in your lifetime, relative to your life itself? Nothing and non-existent, right? 10 things that you say over whatever period of time has no value in relation to your life as a whole, right? So also creation, which are God's 10 utterances, have are totally nullified before God, who is the life of all life, the source of all life. before whom everything is accounted as naught. The soul is kindled and flares up towards the glory of the splendor of his greatness in order to gaze on the glory of the king like glowing coals of a mighty flame which surges upward, striving to be parted from the wick and the wood on which it's taken hold. What's the nature of a candle? If only we had a candle right here, right?
The nature of a candle?
What's the nature of a candle? The flame on the candle, what does it do? It drips down,
Separates
reaches
itself to
up.
rise up.
it jumps up, it dances up, it wants to separate itself. I heard it described like this, I believe it was Rabbi Gordon, I thought it was beautiful. The whole concept of a candle is a fight. The whole thing's a fight. The flame wants to jump upwards, and the energies and the forces that are contained within the wick, which as we studied earlier in our candle Jew model, which is the body, and the energies of the mitzvah, which are the oil, are holding the soul, right, the flame of God, the energy of the Shekhinah, to the candle, right? So the flame's always trying to get out of the candle situation, and the wick and the wax, if they're strong enough, they can hold the flame there, right? So also, when we talk about our love for God, this is the concept of, as we'll soon see, Ratzav Ashuv, that our soul is so enraptured by who God is. We're so in love with who God is. We're describing this love now, this love that's like gold, that it's so encapsulating, it's everything, it's so all-consuming that it makes you feel, it makes the individual feel like you don't even want to be alive. You just want your soul to escape your body, to join the big soul in the sky, to join God in the sky, and the body and everything else, the mitzvahs, you could just leave them behind. I want to connect to God.
So the rabbi said the nature of a candle flame is like
It's constantly a fight, right?
Fight.
The flame wants to jump up and leave, and the elements of the candle want to keep it down here, the wick and the fuel. And this is very similar to what we experience in our bodies, right? What's the flame in our paradigm here? It's our soul, right? The godly aspect of our soul. Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. That the candle of God is the soul of man. The little flame of God, that's the soul of man. There's a little piece of God within each of us, in our godly soul. The godly soul wants what? A nicer car, right? No. The godly soul wants mitzvot. It wants God. It wants to connect to God. It wants to jump out of this serpent skin. The body calls it, or the Kabbalah calls the body a serpent skin. It wants out of here. We've described it before as a princess in a tower. Get me out of here. I just want to return to my father the king. Or a prince in a dungeon. Get me out of here. I just want to run through the courtyard. I don't care if I'm caked in mud and schmutz, right? I just want to get out of here and go back to my father, right? That's the godly soul. What about the body? What about the wick? It's black, it's ashy, and it's keeping the flame down here, right? Our soul is trapped essentially within our body, within our animal soul. So this is the paradigm that we're talking about. The godly soul within us wants to get out and jump up and dance away and join with God. And the body wants to engage in more materialism. Wants a bigger car, a nicer house, a new boat, right? Still waiting for my boat. So that's what the body wants. This is the stuff that the animal soul wants. And for good reason, right? Because if you don't have these things, then how could you survive? I mean, how could a person possibly survive without a boat? It's crazy, right? Or seconds in dessert. But these are the things that our animal soul tells us, right? So this is the imagery that we're set up, okay? Candle, godly soul, animal soul, holding it together, constantly a struggle. So what happens when, in this case, the godliness, the godly soul, is so enraptured in love for God that our soul, she wants to get out? What happens if she overpowers the body? Could it happen?
Sure.
When did it happen?
When did it, or when could it?
Well, okay. Yes, it could. You're
Aaron's
absolutely right.
sons.
Aaron's sons. That's exactly right. Nadav and Avihu. They went into the Holy of Holies. They offered incense when they weren't. It wasn't Yom Kippur. It was the first day of Nisan. And they went in there anyways because they wanted to experience more holiness, more spirituality. So what did they do? They went in the Holy of Holies when they weren't supposed to, and they died. Their souls left their bodies.
Was that a bad thing?
Well,
No, I'm just asking because
it's a good question. It's a good question, Rabbi Yaakov.
if they really wanted to draw closer, they got closer.
Yep,
Yeah.
they totally did
Got
it.
close.
So it was a good for who?
Yeah, for them, if that's what they were seeking.
Okay, so is life about what's good for us?
Well, it depends on what.
the instruction
The reason is-
following
Yeah.
was to instruct the Aaron and the priests,
Yes.
if they did not want to die,
right.
to only go in once a year
Okay.
and to do it this way.
So Gamzul Tova, it turned out good. But is that what God wants? That we should just be so enraptured in godliness that we don't engage in material life down here?
Well, no, but I think he does want us certainly to be obedient.
He wants us to be obedient. He wants us to love him, right?
Yes.
He wants us to love him as souls floating around heaven. He wants us to love him as souls in bodies down here doing mitzvot to repair the world and bring Mashiach and make it a dwelling place for him down here. That's what God wants. They wanted.
Otherwise, why would he make a physical world?
Otherwise, why would he even make a physical world? If the whole point's to get to heaven, why bother with earth in the first place? It's a good question. So yeah, I mean, on the one hand, you could say that's beautiful. Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Avihu, or other people we talk about, the four who entered the orchard, Pardes, Ben Zoma, Ben Azai, they didn't come back. They had a very similar experience. So, I mean, that's very beautiful, right? It's beautiful to love God so much that you're just slain in the spirit and everything's awesome. Is that what the Bible says? Bible says, I need you to get married. I need you to go and get a job. I need you to do tikkun olam. I need you to do these mitzvot. Every time you put on tefillin, it's filling in another puzzle piece that's going to bring the world to come, make our eternal marital home with God. That's what God's goal is, right? Not that we should spend time with him in heaven, and not that we should spend time down here away from him or ignoring him, but that he should be able to partner with us to make the world to come where we could live together forever with him revealed, right? That's what God wants. Mm-hmm. So, again, it's beautiful, but. So, this fiery love, this Gevura type love, this left column love, is brought on by the preponderance of the element of divine fire that's in the divine soul. Remember we talked earlier that everything's rooted in these four elements, and metaphorically speaking, which sounds very weird to us, right? We say four elements, come on, that's old, but in reality we actually live in that world. The four elements are solid, liquid, gas, and energy, which is earth, water, air, and fire. Mm-hmm. Anyways. It's brought about the preponderance of...
It's a three-dimensional world.
This is what our world is, yeah.
Physically, the fourth dimension being time, and the only way we know it is linear.
Right. We
In
have no
one
access to it
direction.
otherwise, right? You're absolutely right. And that's what
These are constraints.
so the oral law says is the three dimensions of this world are space, time, and nefesh, life.
Oh.
Right? What are the three things that we can really do? Space is one aspect. Time is another aspect, and whether or not you're alive. Those are the three things that can pinpoint where you are.
And that's, did you say from the Zohar?
No, that's oral law. I think it's in the Talmud someplace. Okay. So, it comes from, again, fire. We're looking at the imagery of fire. In consequence of this, it develops a thirst. What does fire make you? What's a lot of heat make you do? Thirsty, right? As it's written, my soul thirsts for you. We've all heard the song. Next, it attains the distinction of love sickness. We spoke in pretty good detail before about love sickness a couple parshiot ago when we studied Acharei Mot. And we studied Rashi's, I think it's one of the first Rashis, if not the first Rashi, on the parsha of Acharei Mot, after the death of Aaron's two sons. And Rashi gives us this big parable that seems superfluous, but of course nothing in Rashi is superfluous. And what does Rashi say? He gives you the parable of the two patients, right? One says, don't lie down in cold places or eat cold, or wet. Don't lie down in wet places or eat cold food. And then he says it to another one, and they listened, whereas the first one didn't. And this whole concept was to teach us about the condition that we have, that people who are spiritual, people who actually love God have, which is what we call love sickness, right? That we love God so much and we want to be with him, and we don't really care about the physical stuff of the world. I mean, it doesn't take too long, Bezrat Hashem, if you really are engaged in godliness and you really love God and you train yourself to do it and you do the work every day and you spend time thinking about him and you spend time developing a relationship with him, it doesn't take too long before the rest of the world fades out of concern,
Important.
right?
Yeah.
And you start loving God and you drop some of the loves you have for other things that are worthless or wasted time. And you fear only God and you stop stressing out about things that really are inconsequential as well, right?
Or at least just temporal.
Right. Okay, it's another problem. I believe it was, I think it was Rabbi Gordon's mother, I think he said at one point, who said, any problem that can be solved with money isn't a problem, right? Okay, money comes and goes, that's fine, Connecting to God, that's a problem. Doing tikkun olam, rebuilding this world and making it a dwelling place for God so Mashiach can come and God can be revealed forever. This is a problem, right? This is something we could work on. Our work's cut out for us. So we have this concept of love sickness, right? Where we just want to be with God so much, and we are unrequited in that love. We are experiencing this love in a way that it's not satisfied, right? God's not beaming down from the heavens at us, and we don't get to consummate this love, so to speak, I guess you could say, right? We sense God at a distance from us. We sense God as something invisible for us, right? It is not very much like a husband and wife relationship. As such, we develop this condition called love sickness, or unrequited love. And then after that, so we're tracking the progress here. This love on the left column starts with my soul thirst for you, goes through the distinction of love sickness, and then it reaches a state of rapture. Very rapture of the soul, which is called klot hanefesh, klos hanefesh, as is written, indeed, my soul pines. And that's a verse from Psalm 84. So this word klot hanefesh is something that we're going to be focusing on for the rest of the night. Klot hanefesh is interpreted to mean the expiration of the soul. That you are in such a state of rapturous love for God that you don't even care about the soul-body connection anymore. I don't care. I'm going to pull an Adav and Avihu, and I'm going to connect with God, and the rest of it can worry about itself, right? Which is a beautiful love. A beautiful love. I don't think anyone could deny it. Is it God's ultimate will that we follow through with that? Probably not. From here, supernal gevurot, these powerful energies of the left column, issue forth the root of the Levium, of the Levites on earth. Did you know that the Levites are left column oriented? Shocking. What did they have to do? They had to build the temple and take down the tabernacle and transport it, right? This had to be very organized, very detail oriented. It needed to be done on time, on a schedule. There was a process, step by step by step.
Strict. Even the priesthood is very strict. Everything has to be precise.
Well, we'll see when the Kohanim come in soon. But even later in the Beis HaMikdash, when they had the Levites and they weren't building and breaking down anymore, they were singers, right? Focusing on measure and rhythm and rhyme and all of the different aspects that go into the multitude of complexity that is music, right? That's a task for a Levi, someone who's a left column oriented, gevurah oriented. So Levites are left column on earth, below, and in the world to come. In the parentheses it says, when this world will be exalted, they will become Kohanim. You guys ever hear that before? The Leviim are going to be Kohanim in the world to come. As the Arizal commented on the verse, but the priests, the Levites. That's a verse from Ezekiel 44. And Ezekiel 44 is in that 8-chapter section of Ezekiel at the end of the book, which talks about the third holy temple, right? And where it says the Kohanim, HaLeviim, the Kohanim, they're the Levites. The Levites of today will become priests of the future. Go ahead.
The priests and the Levites, meaning all the Levites, is what you're saying.
It's what the Arizal seems to be saying, right?
However, the priests are always Levites.
No matter what,
but
right?
All the Levites are not priests.
So what we learn...
what is the correct interpretation here?
So there's two interpretations. One, we understand that the Leviim are rooted in left column energy. And we understand that the Kohanim are rooted in right column energy. The Kohanim are energized by love, not left column energy, not Gevurah. The Levites, they're Gevurah people. The Kohanim, it's love, which is why you say, when you give the priestly blessing and you say the bracha for that, you say, Mavorech Amo Yisrael Ba'ava, right? You make the bracha when you say the priestly blessing, and you say, who blesses the children of Israel in love, with Ba'ahava, with love, right?
The priest.
The priests, that's what the Kohanim do. They do it in love. You look at the commentaries on the portions of leprosy, of tsaras, right? And it says, who's the only person who could diagnose someone as leprous, as having tsaras?
Show yourself to the priest.
Has to be a Kohen. Has to be a Kohen. Why? Because they see through a lens of love. They're right column oriented, right? They say, in the end of the day, this is going to be okay. It's not really tsaras. Whatever it is that they say. Even if they need a scholar to come and say, that's definitely it. It's the Kohen who has to proclaim it, because it has to be ba'ahava, it has to be with love. So Kohanim are right column energy, Leviim are left column energy. So the two interpretations of what this verse means in Ezekiel, 44:15, HaKohanim, HaLeviim, the priests, which are the Levites, is that in the world to come, the Levites are going to either be elevated to the rank of kahuna, to priesthood, or when the souls of the Levites come back into bodies, they're going to come back into the bodies of Kohanim. So the problem will be solved. Right? Those are the two opinions. Let's see. The service of the Levium, like we said, was to raise the voice. And again, what were they raising? They were raising the temple, right? They were building up the tabernacle and taking it down in the desert, or they were lifting up their voices in praise, right? This concept of lifting up is left column energy. It's fire energy. Fire goes up. As opposed to right column energy, water trickles down. So, the Levium, the service of the Levium, was to raise the voice of melody and thanksgiving, with song and music, with tunefulness and harmony, in a manner of advance and retreat. Ratz v'shuv, right? The concept of there's a certain give and take in music. And this is what we talked about earlier with the left column energy, this tzimtzum energy, this AC current, if you will. There's a bit of a give and take in the process, almost like breathing. And that's very much what it's like in music, right? They build you up, and then you hit a chorus, and then you got another, stanza, and then you get a chorus, etc., etc. Then there's the bridge. Everybody loves the bridge, right?
Which creates the, what do you call it, the dynamics.
Dynamic was a perfect word for, I think a pretty good word for this, at least.
Mhm.
Very good, very good. Yeah. In advance and retreat manner, which is the distinction of the intense love resembling flame that flashes out of lightning, as it's mentioned in the Gemara and the Talmud in Tractate Chagiga, chapter 2. So, again, the concept here is not the free-flowing love that is chesed, right? But this is a back-and-forth relationship love that's rooted in the left column energy, that's rooted in Gevurah, it's rooted in fire. Fire dances up and down. It's attached to the ground, but it reaches up, and it reaches up again and again until the fuel is gone or the wick is gone, right? Which represents our passing. Chas v'sholom. So it is impossible to elucidate this matter clearly in writing, says the Alter Rebbe. You want to describe what this fiery love is, what it means to be so enrapturously adoring God that you don't even want to live anymore. You just want to be absorbed into who He is. I can't put this in writing, says the Alter Rebbe. This is something you got to feel. It's too difficult to explain. And again, when we talk about levels of kavanah, how do you do a mitzvah? How many ways are there to do a mitzvah?
613.
Okay, pick one. So let's say put on tefillin. How many ways are there to put on tefillin?
One.
Or to say Shema?
One.
One way to get it done. Either you did it right or you didn't do it right. Okay, I thought the Shema, but I didn't say it. Well, you didn't do it, right? Very sorry. How many ways are there to feel? How many levels of kavanah are there when you do a mitzvah, any mitzvah?
Oh, see, that's what I was trying to rectify there, because that's what I thought you meant by how many ways to do it.
Right. Either you get it done or you don't.
The kavanah.
But how did you get it done?
The kavanah is
Infinite
where
ways.
Yes.
How many different ways of kavanah can there be for any mitzvah?
Innumerable.
As many as there are people, right? As many as there are people feeling that kavanah. So, again, impossible to elucidate this matter clearly in writing, specifically because it's going to be individualized to some certain extent. You know, it's going to feel a little bit different for a different person. And for the Alter Rebbe, I mean, it actually says, and I'll share the story, I suppose, that the Alter Rebbe, I'm not sure if it's on numerous occasions or at least one that I can remember, he actually was so enraptured with love for God that he fell to the floor. He was rolling on the floor. And he said, God, I don't want your world to come. I don't want your Mashiach. I just want you. I just want to be one with you. I want to make that.
Shaking violently, too.
I heard rolling. But, you know, the idea that he was so enrapturously in love with God that he couldn't contain it anymore. Like we talked about crying before. What is crying? You cry when your emotions are over the top. You can't contain your emotions anymore, so it's got to leak out you somehow, right?
It could be positive or negative.
It could be positive or negative. People cry in joy. Sure. It's too much. It's too much. It bubbles over, right? So the Alter Rebbe experienced this, but does not necessarily have the words to be able to describe it, which is where the sentence comes from. Yet every warm-hearted and intelligent person, gifted with Bina, with understanding, who deeply binds his mind and contemplation to God, will discover the goodness and light which are treasured up in his intelligent soul, each according to his capacity. Again, there's innumerable ways that we can feel love of God. There's one way to do a specific mitzvah. There is, in the parentheses here, there is one who is affected in one way, and there's another who is affected in another, and so on and so forth. Prefacing it, and this is going to be the key for the rest of the chapter pretty much, prefacing it, any one of these loves, whether it's coming from even right column energy or left column energy like we're speaking about here, this intense, fiery, rapturous love, you want to know how to get there? It starts with yirat chet, the fear of sin. That's the only way it could start. First, you have to fear sin. In order to be completely parted from evil, that the iniquities may not interpose, God forbid. The Alter Rebbe doesn't even want to finish the sentence. He just ends it with chas v'sholom, God forbid. Any sin that we do, any impurity that we engage in is like an iron curtain that keeps us from the love of God. see people who are all over the place, and we have issues, and I'm just not that spiritual, right? Maybe it's for other people. Leave Shavuot to the rabbis, right? We all have to do every little thing. I mean, they just don't feel it. I'd rather have 7-layer cake or whatever the situation is, right? So where does that come from? That dullness of heart, as we've studied before, comes from every sin that you engage in puts an iron curtain between you and God. No wonder you can't feel him. Can you feel through iron or concrete? So you need to start taking down some of those klipo. You need to start breaking down some of those walls if you're going to feel this love for God, which is exactly what it says earlier in Tanya, where the Rosh Yeshiva Began Eden, the head of the Torah Academy in the Garden of Eden, said, if your heart is not catching like a fiery flame, what do you got to do? You got to take the log out of the fireplace and break it up a little bit. Get rid of those klipo. Get rid of those iron curtains that stop the heat from getting to the sensitive parts to make it a fiery flame. Anyways, the order of service, the order of the service in occupying oneself with Torah and with mitzvot is a service derived from the category of the said intense love, is in the manner of retreat alone. So we'll put a name to this concept. We've said it before, but this concept that we're talking about here, and we spoke about it at length when we talked about Parshat Acharei Mot in the concept of love sickness, Ratza V'shuv. Ratza V'shuv. Can somebody give me a quick one-liner? What's Ratza V'shuv? By the way, we've been talking about it tonight. It means to run and return, right?
To run and return.
That's what it means. What does it mean?
Fire go up, fire come down.
Fire goes up, fire come down. I feel so intensely passionate to God. I feel so connected to God. I just want to be with God. I'm going to sneak into the Holy Holies and offer an incense offering. And then you have to remember, okay, how do I actualize this unrequited love, this love sickness? How do I materialize? How do I satisfy this love sickness that exists within me, this passionate love for God that exists within me? I got to get out of this Holy Holies and I got to go do a mitzvah, right? I'm going to go find something to do. I need to get married. I need to have children.
The concept is you do what he wants you to do, not what you want
right.
to do.
Mitzvah. It starts with the mitzvah. Mm-hmm. So, any time that you are going to try to satisfy this love, it is in the method, or the manner rather, of retreat. This is the shuv aspect of Ratza V'shuv. Okay, yeah, you're running towards God. How do you connect to God? Do you have to go and use a divine name of God and travel into the Garden of Eden like Ben Zalman Ben Azai and get stuck up there and you don't be able to come back, right? Or do you come outside and you do a mitzvah, right? You say Shema, you say the Amida, you put on tefillin, a talis, you light Shabbos candles, you bake challah, whatever it is that you do, right? You do one of the mitzvot that God gave you specifically to be able to do, right? That's how we connect with God. That's how we actualize that love. It does not come through our own wild spirituality, because that's just serving ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. That's Ratza V'shuv. That's the whole Nadav and Avihu story, Ben Zoma, Ben Azai. That's what we've been talking about. So when you have this fiery love inside you that yearns for God, and you just want to connect to God so much so that it's even getting to the point of klot hanefesh, the expiry of the soul. I don't even care if I'm alive anymore. I just want God. What do you do then? You have to shuv. You have to come back, and you need to make sure that you are serving God in the way that He asked you to serve Him, right? Like Rabbi Friedman in his talk with the people, right? She doesn't want to go to Paris. She wants you to take out the garbage, right?
Yeah, right.
Just do what she wants. Just do what God wants, yeah? Are we okay on the camera there? Okay. So, where do we find this written? Surely it was some modern rabbi, right, in the 1800s or 1900s that wrote this concept of Ratza V'shuv, to be so rapturously in love with God and then come back down and do a mitzvah with that energy as opposed to expire yourself. Where is this accredited to? Sefer Yetzirah. Traditionally, we understand that Sefer Yetzirah was authored by Abraham Avinu. It's one of the oldest books, according to the tradition, of Kabbalah. Sefer Yetzirah, it talks about all kinds of different energies. It talks about, it means the book of formation, and this was written by Abraham Avinu traditionally. And it says very specifically there, when you feel like you are running, right, Ratza, you're running towards God, remember to shuv, remember to return and go do the mitzvah with that energy and not to just let it consume you. And again, that's quoted from Sefer Yetzirah, as the Alter Rebbe brings down here. And if your heart hastens, return to the one. So that again is from Sefer Yetzirah, the book of formation, one of the books of Zohar traditionally authored by Abraham Avinu. So that's like, what, a 4,000-year-old book? It's like pretty modern, right?
Totally modern.
New age concepts. All right, so the interpretation of the phrase, if your heart hastens, Okay, so here's our verse from Sefer Yetzirah. And if your heart hastens, return to the one. Return to, let's see if I can get this in the Hebrew here real quick and not take up too much time. I guess not. Oh, le'echad, return to the one. Shuv le'echad. So return to one as in the one God. Hence it's capitalized here. So the interpretation of the phrase, if your heart hastens, is the craving of the soul that is in the right side of the heart. Remember we talked about two sides of the heart earlier. There's the right ventricle and the left ventricle. The left ventricle has more blood, more animal soul, more passion. The right side is also passionate, but it's the godly side, right? As opposed to the left side, which is more animalistic. Just to repeat, if your heart hastens is the craving of the soul that is in the right side of the heart, when it gains sway over the left part, over the natural desires of the animal soul, and bursts into flame and grows so exceedingly enraptured that the very soul is consumed with the desire to pour itself out into the embrace of the Father, Chai HaChayim, the life of all life, the source of all life, Yisbarach, blessed be He, and to leave its confinement in the corporeal physical body in order to attach itself to Him, to God, Yisbarach, blessed be He. Then one must take to heart the teaching of the rabbis of blessed memory, and this comes from the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, which again is something we should probably be pretty familiar with as we read a chapter of Pirkei Avot every Shabbat between Pesach and Rosh Hashanah. So what does it say in Pirkei Avot? Against your will you live, and against your will you die. That's what it says in the Mishnah, which is kind of confusing, right? What do you mean, against my will I live, and against my will I die? If I want one, then I don't want the other, right? How could it be both? Because we are a composite entity. So we want to take...
Well, we live in the physical world.
Right.
So, against your will you live. We should live for God and not the body.
Okay.
And against your will you die. Who truly let go and die when the time comes?
Well, that makes sense at that point, right? 70 faces, right?
Mm-hmm.
Against your will you live, against your will you die, in this body, animating it for the purpose of drawing downward the higher life from Chai HaChayim, from the life of life, Yisbarach, blessed be He, through the life-giving Torah, that there may be a dwelling in the lower world. How do we say that in Hebrew? Or in we've talked about it many times before. We say dira betachtonim, right? A dwelling place, an abode for God in the lower worlds. Exodus 25, verse 8, this is the whole purpose of creation. And why am I here? All that existential stuff. You're here to make a dwelling place for God down here. You're here to serve God by making a marital home that we can live with Him, revealed forever in Olam Haba with Mashiach, in the world to come. That's why you're here. So chick chop, right? Through the life-giving Torah, that there may be a dwelling place in the lower world, in this lowest world, for His oneness. Like you said earlier, Rabbi Tzalel, the whole point of life is not to get to heaven. If that was the case, why make a physical earth? Because this is the goal. That's why it ends here. As has already been explained above, as is already explained, as is explained in the Holy Zohar Kodesh, that there be one in one, which is the meaning of which is that the Yichud HaNe'elam, the hidden unity, shall become a category of revealed world. What's the hidden unity? Any ideas?
The Ein Sof.
And in relation to what? Who's He united to?
Everything.
Everything? Is that so obvious and so blatant that you could see it? The table here has a plug somewhere that leads into the God socket, right?
No, it's hidden.
That's the hidden unity, right?
In this world.
What are we trying to do here? Make it into a category of revealed world. That everything should know that it's connected to God and sing because of it, right? That's what the Zohar says. And I believe here the terminology, if I'm not mistaken, and I might be, you know how these things go. Echad be'echad. I guess I was mistaken. All right. I thought I had heard it earlier that it might be related to the concept of making echad yachid, right?
Oh, okay.
But that's not what it says here in the Tanya. So,
What is the
echad be'echad?
Echad Bechad?
Echad be'echad. One in one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unity and
Unity.
complete unity.
It's essentially, right?
Essentially, right?
And revealed, as the Zohar says.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And this is the interpretation of the text from the famous song, Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Come My Beloved, to
welcome the bride.
welcome the bride, right?
The-
What does this mean?
The bride of Shema we receive.
Shabbat Malka, right? The Shabbos queen, right? From this will be understood the adage of the rabbis, against your will you live, and against your will you die. What then should one's desire be? The answer will be found elsewhere in the lengthy explanation of this Mishnah, against your will you live, with the aid of the Chai HaChaim, the life of life, Yisbarach, blessed be He. So this is the concept. And how do you say Shabbat bride? How do you say bride in Hebrew?
Of this Mishnah.
Mishnah. Pirkei Avot is Mishnah.
Okay.
How do you say bride in Hebrew?
Kala.
Kala. Kala. How do we say before this concept of the expiry of the soul, the expiration of the soul, where you feel so enraptured that you don't even care about the body anymore, you just want to be connected to God? What do we call it? You could flip back if you like. It's in the bottom of page 264 on the left.
Kalot.
Klot HaNefesh.
Hanefesh.
Klot HaNefesh. It's got the same letters, doesn't it? Kala, Klot, right? So what does this mean, come my beloved? It means that when we have this expiry of the soul, when we have this feeling that we want to be so connected to God that we don't even care about the body anymore, what do? Then we come to the bride. You get married. You have a life here. You establish a situation, like we were saying earlier. You go and you build put another building block in the Jewish community, right, in the infrastructure of Judaism. You help people to be able to do more mitzvahs. You make this world a more godly place. You lift up all of the physical, mundane stuff, and you turn it into something holy, right? That's what we should do. That's how we should express this love that we have for God. Again, this love that we've described in chapter 50 is this love that's compared to gold. The love that's in the left column energy, this fire type energy, where we just love God more than ourselves, right? And we've spoken a little bit about this kind of concept earlier when we talk about Ahava Rabbah, this great love, which is love that's based on Him, not on us. Similar. So, when we talk about this concept of this love that's compared to fire, what do we think that means? Y'all been through chapter 50 now?
Do the mitzvah.
It means do the mitzvah. It's a good answer. That's a good answer. But that's essentially the shtick, right? And this is going to lead us into the last 3 chapters of the Tanya, which are going to talk about, again, the ultimate purpose of man in God's creation, which is to make this place a dwelling place for God. It all is related back to that. So we have this love that exists within us for God, whether we know it or we don't, right? We talked about the hidden love, the concealed love as well. We all have the ability to develop it into something more intense, something more fiery. We all have 613 methodologies by which we can express this love, which are the mitzvot. And we all have this situation put in us for a reason.
To remove the klipot from this world.
That's the purpose.
That the Malkut be fully revealed.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And this is, of course, the whole concept of this back and forth where God partners with us in creation. That it shouldn't just be that, God sends a Messiah, some spiritual giant from heaven, and come and does everything for us, right? What's Mashiach's job? He's supposed to take away all the klipot. He's going to remove the spirit of impurity from the earth. Who's doing that job? Who's doing that job today?
We're partnering with Him.
We do it every time we do a mitzvah. Every time a woman lights Shabbos candles, they're taking a little piece of this world and fixing it. They're taking a little mundane aspect of this world and turning it into something holy and beautiful and bringing Mashiach closer. And God forbid if that woman lights the Shabbat lights at the wrong time, it's putting us a step backwards, right? So when Mashiach comes, it's not going to be so much Him doing everything. It's going to be Him revealing that we've been doing it the whole time for thousands of years, right? That's God. So
since He is the Torah, we are truly partnering with Him.
Right? We can't do it by ourselves, right? The mitzvot given to us at Mount Sinai changed the fabric of our creation in such a way as to actually enable mitzvot to do tikkun olam, which is before they were just personal spiritual engagement.
What does it say in Hebrew gold, like it did so?
It's Zahav.
Zahav.
I'm not sure where it is on the page exactly, but I could spell it for you if you like. Zion He Vav.
Kesef is silver.
Kesef is silver. Let's see if I can help you out here. All right, I'm going to have to help you with that off camera, I guess. Sorry.
Well, we know that Zahav is
Yeah. And again, interestingly enough, I think it's worth it to note, Zion is 7, Hey is 5, Bays is 2. This is a numerical value of King David, right? Unless my math is off.
Mm.
So this is the kingly love, right? The love of, the true love, the love of Mashiach. That everything is going to be so amazingly connected and close to God. You can feel God's love everywhere. How is that expressed? By jumping back down here, doing the shuv after the ratzah, and doing mitzvah, right? Whatever it is.
I'm sorry, what were the letters again?
Zion, Hey, Bait.
Beit. Almost had
Vit.
That, yeah.
572. That's 14.
14, right?
Mhm.
Okay, good. I'm not losing my marbles after all.
Not complete.
So again, this is going to lead us into chapter 51, 52, and chapter 51, 52, and 53, which is going to close our book of the first book of Tanya, Lakutei Amorim. And the Alter Rebbe again is going to be honing in on the concept of what is the purpose of it all, right? We just spent 10 chapters, some of the longer and shorter chapters in Tanya, discussing the love of God and fear of God. What's the point of it all? Who cares if I love God? Why should I care and not just love myself anyways? Because it's so worth it. Because building this world to come is the truest and lastingest pleasure that exists, right? Eternal pleasure, the greatest of all pleasure. And that's, again, another little commentary which we've been talking about before, the concept of lavavcha from chapter 49. With both your hearts, you can control your animal soul. You could channel your animal soul. You could make your animal soul realize that the truest pleasure that there is doing God's will. It doesn't get better than that because he's a source of all pleasure. All right, I think that's enough for tonight. Please
So,
join, or who would like to close this in prayer?
I was just going to ask. So the last section, and I'm actually trying to read it right now, is revealing God's presence in the world. Or, like I had said,
Yeah.
removing the klipa
Removing the klipa.
and revealing the malchut.
And not just removing, but transforming. Right? Is it
go.
me? Okay.
You can, I can, whatever.
Sure. Rabbona Shalom, you're awesome. Your Torah is awesome. Your wisdom is awesome. Your Mashiach is awesome. And we are in awe of you and everything that you've taught us, set up for us, done for us, and continue to do for us every day. We ask that you bless us with your Chokhmah Bina V'Da'at, that we should be able to understand and know everything that you've taught us and integrate it into who we are so that we can use it when we need it, so that we can be who you need us to be when you need us to be it. And we thank you again for the opportunity that you've given us. We're excited to see what comes tomorrow. Amen.
Amen.
Please join us next week for chapter 51. Tanya.